Hello there, it's the 23rd of April and you are watching Race to Power on WION The World is One. Thank you for joining us. I'm Eric Njoka. Today, the world stands with pahalgam following the tragic terror attack that left 27 Indian and foreign tourists dead. The latest from Jammu and Kashmir, political parties have marshaled together, pledging to back the government in their fight against terrorism. We'll link to our correspondent shortly for an update. Also on Race to Power, Elon Musk has announced his time spent running US President Donald Trump's Department of Government Efficiency, DOGE, will drop significantly starting in May, as EV maker Tesla suffered a massive 71% loss to its quarterly profits. Welcome to the show. India is still coming to terms with Tuesday's ghastly terrorist attack in Jammu and Kashmir's Pahalgam. The tragedy that killed 27 innocent civilians and injured many more has prompted political unison in the country. Top leadership across party lines have come together, slamming the terror attack and backing the Indian government to take action against the perpetrators. Jammu and Kashmir Chief Minister Omar Abdullah has also called for an all-party meeting on Thursday in Srinagar.
यहाँ मैं भारत के दृढ़ संकल्प को दोहराना चाहूँगा कि टेररिज्म के खिलाफ हमारी जीरो टॉलरेंस की पॉलिसी है। भारत का एक एक नागरिक इस कायरतापूर्ण हरकत के खिलाफ एकजुट है और हम सिर्फ उन लोगों तक नहीं पहुँचेंगे जिन्होंने इस घटना को अंजाम दिया है, हम उन तक भी पहुँचेंगे जिन्होंने पर्दे के पीछे बैठकर हिंदुस्तान की सरजमी पर ऐसी नापाक हरकतों की साजिशें रची हैं।
मैंने बताया कि होम मिनिस्टर साहब को अभी देखना है कि कौन थे इसके पीछे, जल्द से जल्द उसका पता लगाया जाए और देखा जाए कि आगे इस किस्म के वाकयात ना हो।
पार्टी unequivocally condemns this cowardly act of terror and those responsible for it in the strongest possible terms. This attack is a direct assault on the unity and integrity.
गवर्नमेंट को ये समझना चाहिए कि ये उरी और पुलवामा से ज्यादा दर्दनाक है ये, और उम्मीद करते हैं कि ये जो टेररिस्ट पाकिस्तान से क्रॉस करके आए इनको गवर्नमेंट ऑफ इंडिया सबक सिखाएगी और इंसाफ करेगी जिन लोगों की जानें गई हैं।
While India's leadership contemplates its next move, locals are out on the streets across Jammu and Kashmir condemning the attack and calling for justice. Several organizations declared a complete shutdown to protest the assault in the valley. Most of the shops, fuel stations and other business establishments were shut in Srinagar. Schools also remained closed. Jammu City, Riyasi, Udhampur, Katra, Katwa and Samba areas also observed shutdown, barring some essential supplies stores. Well, our special correspondent Idris Lone has been on this report since the tragic incident occurred, and tracking all the developments is now joining us on the phone line for more. Idris, good to hear you. The all-party meeting being held by the Chief Minister tomorrow is the latest big announcement coming from Jammu and Kashmir. What can one expect to come out of this meeting?
Well, Eric, there are two very important things that we expect that all the political parties will be meeting tomorrow, and mostly they'll be discussing about the tourism situation in Jammu and Kashmir. The tourism in the whole Kashmir Valley has been peaking in the last 3-4 months, especially in the last 1 month. The winter tourism has been great. After that, the spring tourism, especially with regard to the tulip garden, was going wonderful. There were around 6 lakh tourists who visited the tulip garden in just a span of over 2 weeks. So I think one of the major concerns that the political parties will have is that the tourism industry is the backbone of Jammu and Kashmir, and it's going to be definitely impacted, as we're also learning that 95% of the bookings in Pahalgam have been cancelled. There are tourists who were staying in Pahalgam. They've they've left and deserted this pahalgam area completely. Although we did speak to a lot of tourists in Srinagar today, they felt safe, but some of them still had some doubts, and they were not really able to make their minds whether they want to stay or go back. A lot of tourists we did see at the airport leaving, taking special flights and leaving from Srinagar. It does seem to be playing on the minds of the tourists that whether they should come or not come. A lot of cancellations already happening with a lot of travel agents across Kashmir Valley. So this is going to be a big, basically blow to the tourism industry, especially in the Kashmir Valley, and that's going to be a concern for the government. As we've seen in the last at least 5 years, the tourism across Kashmir Valley had peaked, and they might have to come up with some kind of solution, some kind of safety net, and also they might also request people across the country, domestic as well as international tourists, to come and stay and feel safer, to make them feel safer.
Idris, as someone who has been living in and even covering Jammu and Kashmir, has this sense of political unity been seen before? What is that one thing that is uniting the parties like this in Jammu and Kashmir?
Well, Eric, it is actually for the first time ever, even in my lifetime, I have never seen everybody out on the streets, basically condemning the attack. We have seen since morning, not only political parties, traders associations, tourist associations, students coming out in huge numbers and protesting and condemning this attack. This is definitely for the first time where we've seen all of them on the same platform, all of them together condemning the attack. Because one thing is, Eric, that this kind of incident has not happened in the Kashmir Valley ever. This brutality has never been witnessed, at least in the last 30 years, where tourists who always welcome in the Kashmir Valley were treated like this, were brutally murdered like this, and never have we seen that before. And that has actually basically touched the emotions of the locals here, and that's why we're seeing everyone out on the ground. The political parties also tomorrow meeting with regard to the same situation, and it seems they will be on the same ground as well. In the last 5 years, we've seen peaceful times in Kashmir Valley, and that is one of the reasons that people really want those peaceful times to last longer. They don't want them to be short-lived. They don't want that peace should be disturbed, that nobody should, tourists should decide not coming to Kashmir. They don't want these things to happen, and that is one of the reasons that everybody is on the road and condemning these attacks.
Idris, finally, let me go back to the point that you raised there, and it's about cancellation and tourists cancelling their trips to Jammu and Kashmir. How is the administration of Jammu and Kashmir planning to handle this situation, considering the upcoming yatra?
Well, Eric, if we look at the situation at the ground, from the security perspective, we are seeing that massive search operations are being taking place across the Kashmir Valley. There are around 1,500 arrests that have been made since yesterday across various districts in the Kashmir Valley, and Jammu and Kashmir police making sure that they want to basically nab the attackers as soon as possible. What we are seeing on the ground in Baisaran also is that not only Jammu and Kashmir police, Indian Army and paramilitary forces, but the commandos from both CRPF and Indian Army are basically deployed there, have been pushed in there, and they're also involved into the search operation. We've seen helicopters, drones being pushed into the area as well. And we also saw in the morning that how Home Minister also took an aerial survey of the whole place after visiting Baisaran, because he also wanted to get an idea of where these militants must have come from and where did they vanish. And there are massive search operations still being carried out by the security forces across the area.
That is our special correspondent, Idris Lone, on the phone. Idris Lone, we'll have to leave it there. Keep safe, and thank you very much for talking to us today. Tesla's Elon Musk is scaling back his work with the Trump administration's Department of Government Efficiency. This comes after the electric vehicle maker reported a 71% plunge in first quarter profits. Now, according to the company's earnings report, Tesla's profits fell to $409 million, largely due to decreased auto sales and concerns regarding brand reputation stemming from CEO Elon Musk's involvement at Doge. Revenues fell 9% to $19.3 billion. Musk defended his work with the Department of Government Efficiency, stating critics are paid beneficiaries of alleged waste and fraud. He announced that he will be reprioritizing his commitments, allocating more time to Tesla starting next month and 1 to 2 days a week on government matters as needed. Tesla has withdrawn its 2025 projections, citing uncertainty surrounding trade policies and demands. The company has noted that shifting trade policies are disrupting global supply chains and affecting costs, which, combined with changing political views, may impact short-term demand for its products. Following Trump's return to the White House, Tesla faced backlash, including consumer boycotts and vandalism, leading to a decline in sales across multiple markets. Used Tesla prices also dropped, reflecting the brand's decreased popularity. After Musk's announcement, Tesla's stock rose 4.7% in after-hours trading. Analysts believe Musk's refocus on Tesla may help address recent challenges. All right, let's talk to our correspondent in the United States. Susan Tehrani is now joining us live from New York. Susan, good to see you. And Elon Musk says that he is not scared of leaving Doge for now. He says that if America falls, Tesla falls, and he doesn't want that to happen.
No, he doesn't want to happen. I think it's interesting that this announcement really is coming as we're reaching that 130-day limit that a special government employee like Elon Musk can have before having to disclose all sorts of financial disclosures, personal information, and whatnot. So on the one hand, he may be dodging that aspect of it. On the other hand, he, has set up this Doge, and he thinks that they're bright and brilliant people that will continue the work. Did they do what was expected? They didn't find $3 trillion in wasteful spending. They didn't get rid of that. But supporters say that he did pretty well in at least, establishing this situation. And on the other hand, as you mentioned, there's the issue of Tesla, SpaceX. There's the issue of X itself, the social media platform that Elon Musk needs to attend to as well. So it seems like, this announcement comes in tandem with what was going to happen anyway, that 130 days. He was supposed to leave, So it's interesting, but it's very interesting how markets react to every single announcement these days. That's right. Susan Tehrani, stay with me because we'll talk about Trump next. Now, let's move on now. And U.S. President's deportation plan is facing strong pushback from the judiciary. Several cases have been filed against President Trump's deportation orders. The president has now urged the judiciary for cooperation.
We're getting them out, and I hope we get cooperation from the courts because, we have thousands of people that are ready to go out, and you can't have a trial for all of these people. It wasn't meant, the system wasn't meant, and we don't think there's anything that says that, look, we are getting some very bad people, killers, murderers, drug dealers, really bad people.
This comes after the U.S. Supreme Court issued an emergency order blocking the Trump administration from deporting Venezuelan gang members. The court also ruled that every individual facing deportation must undergo due process before any final removal. The Trump administration has invoked a wartime law to carry out deportations. The law is known as the Alien Enemies Act of 1798. It grants the U.S. president the powers to deport foreign nationals without a trial. But there is a caveat. This act only applies to foreign nationals from countries with which the United States is at war with. This has landed Trump's deportation orders in legal trouble across the country. Cases have been filed in Washington, D.C., Texas, New York, Colorado, and Maryland. In multiple cases, courts have blocked deportations under the Alien Enemies Act. In one particular case, the deportation of a man named Kilmar Abrego Garcia to El Salvador was ruled illegal, and a Maryland court ordered the U.S. government to facilitate his return. Trump's clash with the judiciary is not sitting well with the public either. In a recent Reuters Ipsos poll, 83% of over 4,000 respondents say the U.S. president must obey federal court rulings, even if he disagrees with them. Susan Teherani is still with us from New York. Susan, this battle seems not to be ending because now Donald Trump is saying that he wants some sort of cooperation from the judiciary. Will he get that?
It depends on the judges. You know, a lot of these judges are appointed by former President Barack Obama, former President Joe Biden. To be fair, Donald Trump appointed many judges during his first term across the board. So it depends on, you know, what court these cases go to. The judiciary is supposed to be non-partisan. We're seeing that, you know, that may not be the case right now at this point when it comes to these deportation issues. And then, unfortunately, despite the fact that the majority of Americans really don't support illegal immigration, the issue of deportations and immigration has become so political. You know, you saw that sort of Maryland lawmaker go all the way to El Salvador to meet with Abrego Garcia. You saw the backlash regarding that. And then you have, you know, Democrats, you know, traveling to these ICE facilities and whatnot. So it's familiar ground, but it doesn't seem to end soon, nor should it. You know, you have the judiciary branch, you have the executive branch. Everyone's doing their own job. To what extent they're going to continue clashing, that's what we're going to be watching.
Susan Teherani, good to see you. We'll have to leave it there. Thank you for talking to us today. Voting in Canada's high-stakes elections will take place on the 28th of April. A record number of Canadians have already cast their mandate in advance polls that began on the 18th of April. 7.3 million Canadian voters have already cast their ballots for their preferred candidates in early voting. This accounts for 25% of all registered voters. It marks a 25% increase from the 5.8 million who voted during advance polling in the 2021 elections. Over 2 million people cast their votes on the first day of early polling. The heightened enthusiasm among voters reflects what's at stake in this election. Let's now take a look at who is leading the race. According to the polls, Trudeau's successor is leading Liberal Party to a fourth consecutive election victory. Mark Carney has put Liberals in front, with polls showing 43.1% Canadians going their way. Next up is Conservative candidate Pierre Poilievre, who was eyeing an election landslide earlier this year, has been trailing in polls. He is almost 5% behind his Liberal rival, Carney. Third is New Democrat Party candidate Jagmeet Singh, who has 8.3% Canadians backing him. Carney called for snap elections after taking over from Justin Trudeau in March. The elections are taking place amid heightened tensions with the United States. Dynamics of a long-standing Canada-US friendship have changed after Trump took office in Washington. U.S. President Donald Trump's tariff offensive and plans of making Canada the 51st state of the U.S. has been the central issue in Canadian election. There is one big question looming over Canada's snap elections: who can handle Trump better? Both candidates are trying to corner each other on who is best suited to deal with the U.S. president. Pierre Poilievre wants to confront Trump through domestic policy changes, while Mark Carney plans to go head-to-head with the U.S. president on trade tariffs. Moving to Australia, the country heads to polls on May 3rd. Early voting has already begun, and with just days left until the final vote, the race is shaping up between Prime Minister Anthony Albanese of the Labour Party and opposition leader Peter Dutton. Before we go to polls, let's understand Australia's election system that works on preferential vote, in which voters do not just pick one candidate, they rank them in order of preference. The primary vote is the first choice a voter makes, but if no one gets a majority, the votes are recounted, adding in second and third preferences from other candidates. This process then continues until one candidate crosses 50% vote mark Let's now take a look at what polls are saying about Australia's race to power. Polls suggest Albanese has a slight lead against Peter Dutton. Now, according to a Roy Morgan poll released this week, Labour leads the two-party preferred vote at 55.5%. The coalition, led by Peter Dutton, trails with just 44.5%. The race is tighter when it comes to primary vote, where Labour and Liberals are separated by just 0.5%. A separate YouGov poll shows a similar story. Labour at 52.5%, the coalition at 47.5% in two-party terms. But in primary votes, both major parties stand 1.5% apart from each other, meaning minor parties and independents may hold the keys to power. And when it comes to leadership, Albanese still has the edge. In the same YouGov poll, 48% of voters say they prefer him as Prime Minister, while just 38% back Dutton. The Australian Electoral Commission is preparing for what it describes as the nation's largest peacetime logistical event. More than 18 million Australians are registered to vote. 60 million ballot papers are being printed at the moment. The student-led protest in Serbia is catching momentum months after the large-scale demonstrations first began. On Tuesday, thousands in Serbia stepped out to welcome back dozens of university students who returned after completing a 1,300-kilometer cycling trip to seek support from the European Union for the rallies against corruption in Serbia.
We came here to celebrate this phenomenal success. I consider this legendary. I consider it unbelievable. We are truly proud of them.
Completing a 13-day cycling trip as a mark of protest, locals received close to 80 students with fireworks, drums and chants to recognize their actions.
We are here to welcome these heroes who came back from Strasbourg, to greet them. Kudos to all they have done. Generally, these students are a total amazement for me. They are like bees, they have their own rules, and they push their cause to the end.
For months, Serbia has been witnessing a large-scale anti-graft movement led by students, with many teachers and other professionals also participating in the demonstrations against the Serbian government. Protesters have been calling on the bloc to back the movement as Serbia continues to push for European Union membership. Within the country, authorities have responded by cracking down on dissent. As recent as last week, President Aleksandar Vučić announced that salaries for the month of March will not be given to those who participated in these anti-government protests. Responding to the crackdown, locals are showing support for teachers who have been unpaid in months by contributing on crowdfunding platforms. So far, citizens have collected more than $1 million, which is being used to partly pay teacher salaries.
Our salaries were reduced in February and March. Specifically, we received no payment at all in February, except for a small compensation covering the national holiday. What happened to us feels like a form of pressure, an attempt to force us to abandon this form of protest.
Now, according to teacher unions in Serbia, over 20,000 teachers stopped receiving their monthly pay. Now, according to foundations leading the donation drive, some university professors are also now at the receiving end of crackdowns, and NGOs expect the number of educators stripped off their salaries to grow further. Donald Trump's deportation of illegal immigrants from the United States has Latin American nations Venezuela and El Salvador in a standoff. Loved ones of the deported immigrants detained in El Salvador are crying foul over the government's prisoner swap demand. Venezuelan families have slammed El Salvador President Nayib Bukele's proposal to exchange Venezuelan political prisoners for Salvadorians held by Venezuelan President Nicolas Maduro's regime.
Here in Venezuela, those who are in prison are there because they did something, right? They're in prison because they did something and were judged. They went before a court. Those political prisoners. But our children, they are political prisoners. Our children are the real political prisoners because they are the political prisoners of the poor. Why are they political prisoners? Because they're Venezuelan.
Maduro called his Salvadorian counterpart's proposal completely illegal and abusive, saying that Salvadorians in Venezuela's jails were imprisoned with due process. On the other hand, Venezuela's president said that the immigrants deported to El Salvador have not committed any crime in the Latin American country. And that's the latest on this edition of Race to Power on WION World is One. I'm American Joker. Thank you for watching.
India's global voice, the channel that brings you the biggest stories from across the world.